everyone, today we're taking a look at the TX16S from RadioMaster. Yes, this was supposed to arrive many weeks ago. Unfortunately, mine spent 2.5 weeks with DHL in Hong Kong before it started moving. And that was actually the second one RadioMaster attempted to ship. So this won't be a full featured review. This has been well covered probably by all the other channels that were primary review channels. A few things that I want to touch on, but we'll do a quick overview. Basically, you could tell the switch types by the number of notches. So this is a 3-position switch, as well as this one, as well as this one, as well as this one. This is a momentary switch back here, so maybe a pre-arm switch. And then if you can tell on top, this is also a 3-position. This is a 3-position, and then we have a 2-position down here. We have dials up here, which I don't use these sort of things, so it's hard for me to necessarily give you much input about it. But the center point seems to stick pretty well, but it doesn't seem like they would stick very well at other spaces, so you would probably have to adjust this every time you used it if you put it into a bag or anything. Same can probably be said for the sliders on the side. These are going to move around pretty easily a fair bit, so I don't use those, but if you did need to use those, you probably should know that this isn't real sturdy as far as where it's at, so if it gets bumped or moved, you're probably going to have to continue to adjust it. Probably one of the features that makes it a little bit more unique is that it's got a multi-module inside, so that allows you to bind this to a whole host of different radio protocols, which I believe is a very good thing, considering what FrSky has been doing with some of their firmware. These grips right back here, these are key for me in order to be comfortable, and this little extension of it up here, the way I hold the radio, I think if it didn't have this, it would be very uncomfortable for me. It's a little bit of a bigger radio than what I'm used to. Many of you probably know I like to use the X-Lite, but I'm trying to move away from that. Screen, fingerprints. This has got the ratcheting on. I haven't disabled that yet, so that's something that I will do just yet. The gimbals are Hall sensor gimbals. There's a couple different versions of this radio that can be purchased, so you can get them to. You can get one of these radios with varying budgets, and that's kind of the point, is that they throw a lot of features at you for not a lot of price. Now, it's not all puppy dogs and ice cream. So when I first got mine, my first week of using it, the roller bar would get stuck down. It's not doing it anymore. I think I finally pressed it enough times to where it's now coming back up. I suspect that was just a screw or something that was a little bit too tight, and it has loosened up as I've used it. It used to stick down. You could actually still press it. You wouldn't get the clicking noise, but on the screen you would get some interaction with it. And I found that if I pressed down and I pushed up, that it would release, and so I could press it down again. Also, this button doesn't necessarily always work. Let me show you. The screen is nice. You know, it's not nice like a cell phone screen, but for a radio that's 130 bucks, yeah, it's nice. Unfortunately, we cannot tell how the touch screen would function just yet, because we have to wait for a firmware update in order to be able to use the touchscreen. But that's a cool feature, to have a touchscreen on a radio, and especially at that price point. But so I want to get into the model. These buttons, I'm told, have been revised since the early units. See, I can't get into the model all the time, and that's annoying. That's super annoying. I'm going to have to take this apart in order to look at it. So if I wanted to bind another model, I have to sit here and fiddle with this. If there's another way, let me know to get into the model to where you can bind another model to this name. I can get it in there every once in a while. I guess you're just going to have to trust me, because right now I can't get into that. But that's fairly annoying. Everything else has worked pretty normally. My roller ball loosened up. Roller bar has loosened up. And it's kind of a nice metal feel And I like that feature. As far as the button layouts, whenever it comes down to a radio, I've probably used about a dozen radios now. It's just a matter of learning which buttons do what. They're all generally labeled, and it usually makes sense, but we still have to kind of get comfortable, because most of the time when you're going through these things, you don't actually read what the button labels say. At least I don't, but you just kind of figure it out. Click things until you get there, which is, speaking of clicking things, I'm hopeful when I can upgrade the firmware that maybe you can just tap this and then I can get in there and re-edit, because I'm not certain, because my button feels like it's working. And I don't want to press hard and break something. Anyways, so that makes it pretty difficult. I do have two different models set up in here. I've got D16 and D8. I left the Arrow one there just because. So I can bind those two primary radios protocols up. And that's one of the things that I think is a big proponent of using a multi-module radio like the RadioMaster, is that you're not stuck into one particular ecosystem. If you want to use any of the others, which I would show you some of them if I could get this dang thing into the model, but I can't. It's got DSMX, FrSky, FlySky, it's got Futaba, it's got Bang Toys, it's got all these different protocols. Many of them you probably have never even heard of, because they're just kind of offshoots on other quads that you might not have flown. I personally used the Bang Toys protocol back with the E010, I think it was, which was a little tiny whoop that was like $15, and that was like a big deal back then. But you could bind, I think you could bind one of these multi-protocols to that. Now, there are some tricks that I won't go into, but fine-tuning the radio is something you should probably do if you want the maximum range. If you're like me and you're kind of just a micro guy and you're close in, probably not a big deal, but something you should look at if otherwise. I like that these buttons, or the LED action behind them, can be apparently programmed so that you could maybe do a Knight Rider thing, or maybe a rainbow, or whatever sort of thing you wanted to do. Let me turn this off. I guess it's a bonus, is you got to see it turn on and off and listen to it. The speaker isn't of the highest quality, I wouldn't say. I've heard better speakers in radios, but I'm using 18650 cells. You of course can put a battery in there of your own choosing. They have this project box back here, which I don't know if I've got enough fingernails to get out of there. Which is kind of what it says, project box. So if you had another sort of module you were tinkering with, you could use this box in this bay in order to do that tinkering. Now for me, one of the things comes down to this is the size. I tend to fly like this. Some people say that that's pinching. Some people say it's hybrid. Some people say only this is pinching. I don't necessarily agree with that. Pinching is a matter of subjective opinion. But so I fly like this, and I tend to hold the radio just against my stomach rather than to have a lanyard where this would hang from. And so this is a fairly sizable radio. Now, of all the radios in this sort of square shape, this is pretty comfortable for me to hold it like this. I've got my ring finger, my pinky finger that hook around the back, and then they have this little part here that my fingers kind of latch behind, so it gives me that feeling that I've got good firm hold of the radio. And my plan is to try to switch to this radio. I'm going to try to get this button to working much more regularly, and then I want to switch because many of you probably know that I have been flying using this radio for a long time, which I really like the form factor and how it works. But again, because of what FrSky is doing with firmware and protocol with their radios and locking us out and trying to, it really from a standpoint of having a YouTube channel and trying to help people set up specifically anything with D8, you have to go down this rabbit hole of asking them all sorts of questions about their radio on whether or not they're even going to be able to do that. So RadioMaster, if you would, copy FrSky's form factor and make your own. Or do a one-off. Make a smaller radio for those of us who like these. But for now, I am going to try to be using this more and more and more. and because I want to switch away from the FR Sky radios. So eventually I'll get around to updating my background picture for flight videos and things of that nature, and then you'll find that this radio is possibly in there, provided I can get this button to work more reliably. If I have to spend 10 minutes getting that button to work in order to be able to buy the next model, I probably won't. Something else I thought we'd throw in a bonus, RC Toolkit. You know, we got a little charger here. Couple things. So a good field charger, that's how I look at this. I look at this as an item that'd be a field charger. Hopefully you can see this right down here, but the input goes, you can plug in a battery that goes from 7 volts to 28 volts. And then we have output here for cell phone devices or various USB devices to be able to charge. And then on the other side where we charge our batteries, you can see there it's from 2 to 6S. So we can plug our balance lead in, and then our XT60. I don't have a lot of XT60 stuff, but let's plug something in so we can take a look at it. I find it to be kind of a very small and comfortable form factor. I think especially if you're a micropilot who likes to go out to remote locations to fly, this would be a great little thing to have in your bag so that you could charge your batteries while you're flying. Let's get our battery plugged in here. So you can hear the fan kick on. You can see our readout. Let's zoom into that readout a little bit here so you can get a better look at the screen. So again, you know, it's not cell phone good as far as the screen goes, but I think it has a pretty good color representation and it looks pretty attractive. Some of the operation is just like any other charger as far as operating goes. But let's take a quick look. I got a little battery over here. You can see it gives us the voltage right away at 11.41 volts. We can give it different charge rates. Tells us which channel we're on down here. Cells are auto, which is what I would leave it to. Go down here to the start. We click it. Yeah, I'm just going to let it charge for just a moment. Just give you an idea what it looks like. This is actually a lot faster than I would normally charge. And it gives you this 3S LiPo over here. And then we go stop. Ooh, it says standby. It's ready to go again. So we can go in here and we can change the mode, discharge, storage charge. So that's pretty simple. You can change the end voltage. Say you've got high volt batteries and you want to change the end voltage, you could do that here as well. If you wanted to change the current, well, you could crank it all the way up, but I wouldn't suggest doing that. Oh, and the battery types, I forgot to cover that. LiPo, high volt, lithium ion, nickel metal hydride, PB power, UAV bat. That's a new one to me. I didn't notice that my first time through. What is UAV bat? Some diesel powered battery? Ah, it's for the Mavic. See, that's why I wouldn't know that. I've never owned one of those. So it's a pretty dead simple little charger. A good field charger, it seems like. If some of those specs are interesting to you, or you want to take another look at this, I'll have links to both the products that we've seen in today's video down in the video description. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I really hope I can get that button fixed on the TX16S. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.